Hey, good people. This week we will be reviewing two chapters, chapters 12 and chapter 13. Chapter 12 talking about the process of divorce, and chapter 13 looking at partnering and remarriage. So let's look at beginning in chapter 12 when we talk about divorce. Come on, y'all. Why is divorce so common? Why is it so easy to obtain? What is it within our society that makes us believe that divorce is the answer to a question? One of the things that the book looks at and takes us through is the macro and the micro factors when we're exploring divorce. Now, from a micro perspective, there's a list of several things that we could explore and that the book explores when looking at why people divorce. One of the things that's on here is, of course, the age of marriage. But then when we come down here to the sex of the children, one of the things that we know or that research has shown is that a lot of times men shy away from divorce when there is a male child in the picture, simply because of the desire to want to have that relationship with the child. But other factors that kind of play in when we're looking at divorce would be the income, it would be the education, looking at the couple's age. Now, the macro factors that come into play when we're talking about divorce would be, one of them is religion. Now, with religion, some folks look at that as, oh, well, my religion won't allow me to divorce. However, there are other religions that would allow you to divorce and remarry. So we got to take into consideration, what does our faith dictate to us about divorce? The divorce laws. When we're talking about seeking divorce, we know that there are laws in place to assist us in getting a divorce relatively quickly. Sometimes a divorce that may be an uncontested or a non-contested divorce. When we're looking at the macro factors that come into divorce, one of the things is also going to be our economy, or I should say, each person's income slash wealth. When we see the advances that women have made in employment, like through the feminist movement and the independence and growing in their within their careers, a lot of times there is this perspective or this thought that, well, I mean, a woman does not necessarily need a man to take care of her. So a lot of times that factors in to the concept of divorce as well, the income and the wealth that is. When we're talking about experiencing divorce and the dissolution of a marriage, yes, there is a lot of emotional baggage that comes along with that. There is a lot of course, psychological baggage that comes with that, and economical baggage that comes with that, because divorce, unfortunately, is not cheap. But also we have to look at, how is this going to impact me as an individual as I am separating from this family unit that I once belonged to. When we think about the financial impact of divorce, we look at that based on alimony, maybe child support, things like that. When we're thinking about also the emotional impact of divorce, we cannot leave out children and how a divorce impacts the children within the family unit. When we think about the children within the family unit, this slide here looks basically at legal definitions of what may take place when we're talking about the custody of a child in a divorce. You have legal custody, sole legal custody, joint legal custody, physical custody, sole physical custody. All of these 5 different types of custody for children, let me just say this, can leave someone with their head spinning. Usually it's going to be the children, because they're the ones who's left to figure out, how do I make sense of all of this? How do I make sense of where home may be? So when we're talking about looking at the impact of divorce on children, we're not just looking at it from what this slide shows, the financial aspect, the child support, or the legal part of it that the parents are looking at, but we're looking at it again from a short-term and a long-term perspective. We're looking at how is that going to impact the relationship with the child? Do they feel that they've lost a parent? Do they feel like they have to choose sides? Does this put them in a position where they're going to continue to see this conflict or this division with the parents? When we're looking at the long-term effect, we can start with when a child, how the age of the child and the gender of the child when the divorce takes place. I can say this coming from myself, being the child of divorced parents. It almost doesn't matter, honestly, the age of divorce, age of the child, because the child still experiences the loss even as an adult. I was an adult when my parents divorced, but I still experienced that loss. So we just want to be mindful of that when we're talking about divorce. When we're looking at, again, this is chapter 12, looking at the dissolution of a marriage. Some of the issues that the book brings up about is, when we are unhappy, how do we find that place of happiness? And what does it look like when we're talking about this place of unhappiness? So we're looking at the endurance, marital endurance ethic. Are we able to come back together again? And can we endure solving the crisis that kind of got us, or addressing the crisis that got us into the situation of divorce? The marital work ethic. How am I going to find a balance between home life, married life, work life? How do we get this together so that we are, again, going in the same direction one with another? And then that personal happiness ethic. I just want to be happy. I just want to be in a place where I'm at peace, and that I know that happiness is going to be around me. Chapter 13 gets into looking at what happens with the adults after divorce. And actually, I should say also with parents after divorce, when we're talking about partnering and possibly remarriage. When we're talking about repartnering and remarriage, we get into the conversation, and the book gets into the conversation about what does it look like, and depending on the age, how does that look? Do we include cohabitation in the picture? Again, depending on age, how do we look at dating again? Because when you've been out of the dating scene for a while, sometimes it's not as friendly as what you once thought it was. So when we're thinking about life after divorce, there's a lot of things that we have to consider as we're moving into this place of trying to figure out, do I want to repartner or remarriage? Now, when we're talking about bringing families together following a divorce, the book kind of touches on, and it goes into a lot of great detail when we're talking about step families. It talks about step families. I'm going to go down a little bit, looking at the relationships within the step family. I'm sorry, going down to even talking about how do we survive as a step family. So I'm going to go back a little bit. When we're talking about the step families, there's a lot of different labels that can kind of follow people when they're in step families. I should say, more blended family than step family, because you are taking two separate households that once didn't exist together, and you're blending it together. You're trying to make this a harmonious living situation. And that's when we get down into talking about the relationships, and how well this blended family can function is dependent on the relationships, both within this family system as well as those in the former family system. So we just got to be mindful of that when we're talking about the step families, the relationships. Remember, we talked about that, I want to say it was in chapter 2. When we're thinking about members of the household in the step families, we have siblings, we have step siblings, we have half siblings, we have mutual children. That would be the children that are brought in, or that are born into the family as a result of the new parents coming together, this blended family coming together. Everybody has a role. And I think that it's important when we're talking about step families to be mindful that they are still just family, and not to put too many labels and expectations of the labels onto this new family unit. One of the things that I know that's a battle that the step families have to endure is this whole idea of how do we strengthen, this system to function as a whole, because there's this whole idea of the step parent, and the wicked step parent, and who that person may be, and how they're going to treat us. It's important that we know that the stereotype of the step parent kind of came into play way back in pre-industrial stages, or pre-industrial society, when there was a widower who probably did remarry for the sake of having someone to care for the children. And that wife, that new mother, finding it within herself that, I want to have children of my own and not somebody else's children. And so that whole idea of having a wicked step parent or a wicked stepmother probably came from that area, or from that era, I should say, because once the mother, or once the woman, the new wife had a child, then yeah, she may have kind of looked sideways, we'll say, at the children who were brought into the marriage by the father. This is chapter 12 and chapter 13, good people. Divorce, the result of divorce, and then repartnering and remarriage. All right. So please take the opportunity to read through chapters 12 and 13. Please be mindful to read through the articles that are there in the chapter, and also to view the supplemental videos that I post in the modules. That's just some additional information to help you think about the information that has been shared with you through the readings in the chapter. All right, good people. Chapter quiz, discussion posts, and assignments. With that being said, I bid you love, peace, and bacon grease. Y'all have a good one.